All right, so moving right along, so you have this separation, right, of sex, reproduction, and marriage. We'll see this again. And also now coming back specifically to the LGBT issue, and we'll see this again too, and we'll go into much more detail, that while it separates these three things, which are by nature and moral law and religious, prescription, tightly bound to each other, it also amalgamates or puts together three things that ought to be rigorously separate, and which were separate before, and which contemporary Western culture starting in the late 19th century started to put together, namely desires, actions, and identity. And desires, particularly same-sex desires, homosexual desires. And when I say desires and actions are put together, what I mean by that is that, because morality is thrown out the window now, religious morality, the actions are seen to flow from the desire. The presence of the desire is sort of where we start. And then if the desire is present, as long as everyone consents, right, then the action naturally flows from it. It's unobjectionable morally because it's simply responding to the desire, and there's no consideration on the basis of which the action should be repudiated in a moral sense, right? So you have desires, actions flow from it. And then this is key. This is absolutely critical. And we'll see this, in a future slide, that on top of this is built now an entire personal identity. And this starts in the late 19th century, 1860 or so. The word homosexual is coined in German, Homosexualität, and then it's taken, that's actually, a Greek borrowing. But anyway, it was coined first in the German environment and then taken into other languages in the same form, essentially. There's a German word for it, but they coined it with that Greek. So only quite recently in Western society have people started to see themselves in terms of having a sexual identity. And again, very important, because anyone who grows up in the modern world will take it for granted. Oh, you're gay or straight, or gay, straight, or bi, or, and I read all the time, everyone has asexuality, right? Well, which is your sexuality? Well, no, this idea of asexuality, like ITY, as an abstract noun, this is also a new coinage. Like, what is sexuality? How do you say that in Arabic, or other languages? It's a new thing. So the idea that even 100 years ago or 110, 20 years ago in the West, if you were to ask an average person on the street, are you straight? They would have said, what do you mean, am I straight? Like, they wouldn't have even identified as being quote unquote straight. No one really identified in terms of being either gay or straight. For us, again, it's so ingrained that you're either one or the other, or somewhere in between. So you're bi, but you have to be either gay, straight, or bi. Well, how come no other culture even has words, that correspond to any of this? Because they didn't have the concept. Sexual behavior was something you did. It was not something you were. And we'll see this very important, right? Even, people have been engaged in same-sex behavior. It's attested throughout history, and we can see it. And we know it goes back at least to the time of the people of Lut, right? And it's in Greek culture. You find it also in Muslim culture. If you look at the actual, culture, of course it existed. It's practically universal, not totally, but practically universal. There seem to be some tribes that don't have a concept of same-sex behavior, but it seems to be quite rare. But the idea is that this was something these were things that people did. It's not something you were. And the analogy would be other sexual behaviors for us today as modernized or modern westernized peoples, right? Someone may or may not engage in X act or Y act, or I don't know, masturbation or something like that. And, whether you do or not, it's like something you either do or you don't do. It's not something you are. And you would never think of identifying yourself based on, do you do this particular act or not? And we say, yeah, but homosexuality is different. Well, yeah, it's different to you because it's been constructed that way in your particular cultural milieu at this time and place. But even in the West, until quite recently, no one thought in terms of, of sexual. There was no such thing as a sexual identity. It's all very new, and it's all very culturally contingent, historically and culturally contingent. It's very important for Muslims to understand, because forces in the West, right, they present this as something that is universal, that is just natural, that is just the way things are. And if you're not on board with this, then you are simply, you're unnatural. Like, you're going against just how things are, and you're denying reality. And you say, listen, you can only go back a little bit. And even in your own culture, you have no such conception of this. And so by what fiat, by what right do you sort of, have the fiat to just say, well, this is now a universal truth? Okay. Anyway, let's go on, because we have a lot to do, and I want to make sure we can get through this.
Yeah.